I'm going to talk is, it's a different angle to look at ecosystems. I call projects as temporary ecosystems. I have some slides here to show. I was chairman of the Project Management Institute where we co-launched the Brightline initiative, and our whole focus was about transformation, connecting projects and strategy with reality. So that's where I'm going to be talking. I don't know if they can put the slides up, please. The concept that I'm trying to put together is called the project economy. Basically, with the speed of change and the aggressive competition, everything is becoming project-based. Not just organizations, but education. You can see that with the kids nowadays in school, they learn project-based, which is much more efficient way to learning. So I have used this new model to project the ecosystem and how they learn. Briefly on the project economy, if you don't mind, I'd like to stand here with you. It's always easier. So there's a lot of statistics which shows that there will be a huge increase on the amount of projects that we see. McKinsey talks about 57 trillion by 2030 just on infrastructure, and 2/3 will be in the development area. So there's a lot of need for good projects there. Also, that means that there's a shift in the workforce where most of us will be working in projects as we go forward. Kumar was talking about the gig economy. The gig economy is project-based. Another research point for my book was how work gets done in organizations. I think Sandy was referring to that. We heard about organizational ambidexterity by Alex. So you have the blue side is the day-to-day activities. 100 years ago, there were no projects in organizations. There were just a few people involved in projects. Today, about 1/3 of organizations' employees work in projects part-time. Most of the people are just half-a-day job in the blue side, but they are being dragged into projects, which is change, innovation, new products, new organization, MMA. So you can see the shift of resources from the known and stable work towards the more uncertain and change. And the big issue is not that trend, which is a bit silent because it's not been addressed. But the big issue is when you have the guys at the end here, the robots and artificial intelligence, the impact that they will have with this balance where people will be working is going to shift radically. So forget about having a job description in the future. There's research from Accenture which shows that most of the jobs will be project-based. So I don't know, can you raise your hand? Who has a job description in their office, in their organizations? Raise your hand. Do you have job descriptions? This will disappear very soon. This will be gone. You will not have job descriptions. You will be working in projects for 6 months, 9 months, and then we'll see what happens after. So it's very scary because job descriptions give you security and some perspective. This will disappear. The other big change is a radical way of selling benefits. So companies very traditional like Philips, who are used to sell products, like you see scanners and MR machines, they will soon stop selling products because in a good year they sell 10 machines, 10 RI. They realize that by selling projects, they can engage with a hospital and say, we're going to build a hospital, we're going to run, and we'll put our machines in the hospital, but we can engage for 25 years, not just 10 products per year. So what you see is that selling products will disappear as well, and people in organizations will be selling projects where you deliver value. And the point I wanted to make on ecosystem, very briefly, 5 points. So I think projects are better ecosystems for 5 reasons. First, there's a common purpose. It's very clear when you have a project, there's a purpose and there's a deadline. So people know and they have focus to deliver. Second, there's cheaper access. You don't need to be Microsoft, Amazon, Apple to be part of that. You can access in any project where you share the purpose and where you add value. The same for the equal. You can start. It's small business, individuals can form part of these project ecosystems. It's much easier to build trust in ecosystems like projects. You connect much easier. And finally, the learning is essential. It needs to happen. So let me give you a few examples of projects, ecosystems, where many organizations, many individuals, corporate, public, were working together to achieve some bigger goals and a higher purpose. The first one, let me just give me a small statistic about learning, which shocked me when I heard about, and it's not to depress you, but most of the learning that happens to us as individuals happens when we're from 0 to 4. Yeah, when you have kids, you see they're sponges. That's about 60%. The rest big part happens between 5 and 11. Yeah, so 35. So you know that we can, after 12, it's very hard to learn. We learn, but not as much and not as easy. So it's a bit kind of depressing, but it's a bit of reality. And the other statistic on learning is we've been trained to learn lecture and reading, and that doesn't work anymore. So what you see is much more learning on the active side, which is basically what happens in project, is learning by doing, having some coaching, giving people, empower people to deliver. So a couple of examples just to finish. This was an amazing ecosystem project. You remember when in Chile, 33 miners were trapped 700 meters below. That required so much learning. In a couple of days, the people who were working on the project, different companies, different organizations, had to learn in a couple of days how mining works and how can we drill a tunnel which usually takes 3 months in 3 days. So the learning process was on the job and very, very intense because we wanted to save people's lives. This is one of the most amazing projects I've ever seen in a world where we're trying to fight against each other. In Central Africa, Rwanda, they had one of the worst genocides in history, recent history. Right after those terrible moments, the government said, we need to stop that. We need to start to get together. So they launched several projects to reunite the country. And they have achieved that after 20 years with the participation of citizens, with a lot of communication. Imagine the type of communication and training that you need to have after such a war and genocide. So they really work on these aspects to create that, yeah, we need to leave the past in the past, and we need to think ourselves as in the future. One of my favorite projects, the Sagrada Familia in Spain, is not finished. It's 100 years late, but who cares? Yeah, this is a project where learning happens through generations. And they say they will finish by 2026. I don't think so, but who cares? Because they're generating value every day. They're generating value every day. They're making millions every day. So who cares if the project is late? The learning happens with the generation. 2 more examples, and then I'm done. This one is the Moonshot, very, very popular this year after the 15th anniversary. I think projects have the power of engaging everybody in a big, ambitious goal. And this happens with the Moonshot when it was announced by the end of the 60s. But the picture that you see there, this is happening in 1967. The journalists went to the NASA to check how are we doing the project. So they interview everybody in the NASA space, the chairman. So at the end of the day, the journalists walk out of the office. They see a guy like that. They ask him, what's your name? My name is Miguel. What are you doing? I'm helping to put the first man on the moon. So the guy was cleaning the floor so that the people could come, the scientific people, work on the project the day after. But he was so engaged with that project that he felt he was part of the job. So this is so empowering, these ecosystems where you create the culture where everybody feels empowered. And the last one, I think this is a bit cynic, but the last time Europeans felt Europeans was when we introduced the euro. This is 2002, so projects where everybody, 300 million, were part of that ecosystem to make a huge transformation in a positive manner, successful, happened through a project which, unfortunately, later on was not followed up, but that can show you the power of projects, ecosystems, learning together to make a better world. Thank you, Kumar. Thank you.
Thank you.